Hey there, singers, public speakers, and content creators. My name is Clay Collins, and this is the My Voice Mentor podcast. I'm so excited to welcome you to season 2 of the My Voice Mentor podcast. It's going to be an amazing season with some fantastic guests lined up. But I wanted to start this off with what I think for me is the most important interview that I'm going to have, and it's going to be with my wife, Beth. And for those of you who may not know, she is the one for me that started this whole journey on helping people find and unlock their voice. Because about 10 years ago, she started experiencing pretty severe vocal problems that couldn't be directly related to the vocal cords. The vocal cords were fine, but yet there was something happening that was debilitating and beginning to choke off her voice. She's going to tell that story today. But before we go into that interview, I want to ask you, do you know anyone that has a vocal issue or a vocal problem, or perhaps you're listening to this and you have a vocal problem that you don't know how to solve? We really want to connect with you because we believe that there is help and there is hope for every singer, speaker, or anyone out there suffering from vocal issues, and we want to help you get on a path to success. Beth's journey has helped me learn a lot about the voice that a lot of people, because they haven't had to go down that path, haven't necessarily had to overturn certain stones. But I found some tips, tricks, exercises, and non-surgical solutions that can improve almost every voice that it's tried on. So I would really love to connect with you. So at the end of this podcast, I'm going to show you how to do that, and I'm going to place links in the description. But right now, I would like for you to hear a recording of Beth's voice at the worst of this condition. The condition is called Spasmodic Dysphonia. And as you'll hear in Beth's voice, it is a very traumatic thing to happen to the voice. And then you'll be so encouraged by the end of this episode to see where everything landed. So take a quick listen to this clip.
The consistent word that I've received throughout my life, like a thread, has been, God has given you a unique sword of the Spirit in your mouth, that when you open your mouth to lead worship, it's not about your voice. It's not about that part. It's about the Spirit that is within you. And so because of that specific call, and if you're out there listening to this podcast, and if you have that specific call on your life, know that that's going to be attacked. That's what's been attacked. And so when you have that unique sword, the enemy's going to try to take that away.
Even now, as I listen to that, I am just filled with a lot of emotions because we went through that season. It was a long season of 9 years wrestling with this. And I'm going to let Beth tell the story, but it's an awesome story, and I can't wait for you to meet Beth Collins. So welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
So glad you're here. And really, I guess, it starts way back when we first got married. We got married a little bit later in life. It was a very redemptive story of second chances because both of us came from previous marriages that were both difficult, and both of us had spouses that left us. And we experienced, that's a different story, but we experienced this incredible story of redemption. But shortly after that, about 2 years into our marriage, and we were leading worship and we were doing all kinds of great things, leading amazing services and being a part of a lot of great ministries. But then about 2 years into our relationship, into our marriage, something began to shift. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, like you said, we had such a redemptive story, and God blessed us with twin baby girls in 2011. And shortly after I had given birth to them, we still don't know if it was hormonal or it was a lot of transition going on.
There was a lot of other traumas going on in that season.
Right. So I started to have almost like a chronic laryngitis. And it took a long time to get a diagnosis. It took 1.5 years to get a correct diagnosis because at first they diagnosed it as chronic laryngitis, allergies, so many different things they were trying. So went to Chicago and to a voice institute there, and they diagnosed it as spasmodic dysphonia.
I couldn't even say it, much less understand what that was.
Yes. I'll never forget that day when they diagnosed it. Apparently, you know, all these people deal with this disorder. It's a neurological disorder. So the nerve surrounding the vocal cords, there was nothing wrong with my vocal cord.
That was the confusing part, is that you go to see an ENT and they're like, I don't see anything wrong here. The vocal cords actually looked perfect. They didn't look, it wasn't like something that came on as a result of vocal misuse. It was, that was the hard diagnosis, is that it was neurological in nature.
Right. So they said to me that day, the only treatment for it is to have Botox injections into your voice box, and it will paralyze the nerves surrounding the vocal cords so that you won't have the spasms. It sounded like I was choking when I would go to speak or vocalize at all. It would be like a choking off of the voice.
It would literally stop her voice. So like if I were to try to describe it, it was, I keep trying to get the voice. And it was probably difficult for you, but probably more difficult for people listening, because it literally sounded like she was choking out words.
People would say, you know, are you okay? Are you sick? You know, don't strain, don't talk. And so it got to where, you know, the Botox injections became like a lifeline for me. Every 3 months, I would
get a little bit of relief.
A little bit. I would commute from Dallas to Chicago and have that done. And then I would be good for 3 months, 3 to 4 months. But we just never accepted that as final answer.
Well, I mean, I kind of thought a neurotoxin can't be the final solution.
It's probably not.
It's like, and the way that these doctors presented it is, this is a life sentence. You're going to have this the rest of your life. We're going to be seeing a lot of you. This is going to be the first of many visits. And it felt in a weird way when we went, because that first time I went with you, we flew together because, you know, to have that support. Many times you flew out by yourself because we couldn't always go together. But that first time we went together, and it almost felt like, and this is terrible, but it felt like if you were going to your pusher and they're saying, you know, the first one's free, they actually gave you your first injection for free, because they're like, we're going to be seeing a lot of you. There was something about that meeting where I was relieved that there was at least
an answer,
some sort of answer, some sort of solution, but this can't be the end of the story. They literally had this ledger. It was almost like an Excel spreadsheet where it's like, every time you came, you check it, check. And I'm like, how many? Yeah. You're talking multiple injections a year
for the rest of your
life.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, that can't be good.
Yeah. And it was such a roller coaster. When I would get an injection, it was a window of like talking really good and then singing really good. But it was like, we couldn't have both at once. And it was very, you know, volatile. So,
and it was such a sensitive procedure that sometimes it would work out great, and other times it'd be a complete dud, and you wouldn't have much of anything.
Yeah, so it was very up and down, wasn't consistent. So we began to, of course, research everything.
Yeah,
you know, getting books and researching people who've had this condition and overcoming this condition. And so for 7 years, I would commute and do the injections. And then during that 7 years, we were researching, digging, and that's what kind of led to the vocal coaching and the vocal therapy becoming something that we got so passionate about, helping other people, you know, overcome this challenge.
I began to look at it like my sword against the enemy, a sword against Satan. I looked at this as a direct attack on our family, on Beth. I mean, she's gifted and anointed worship leader, suddenly faced with the ability not to do it. And that just kind of made me mad as a husband and as a singer as well. We just love doing it together.
Yeah.
So I just kind of waged war. So in the meantime, while I was trying to search out every expert out there, and there's not many, every expert out there that had anything to say about spasmodic dysphonia that didn't end in a $40,000 surgery, that they could miss the needle, and all of a sudden now you have
no voice at all.
Just, it's a very bleak outcome. And I learned, I've actually got books sitting over there, and like really boring collegiate books written by guys who are no longer studying this and no longer even pursuing this, because unfortunately it's much more mainstream and popular to develop a drug than it is to develop a solution.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, that's just what pays this pharmaceutical industry. So trying to find a solution that didn't involve large sums of money and toxic substances that you put in.
And no guarantee.
Yeah.
So we just began to pray and seek the Lord for a miracle.
Right.
We just kept praying for a miracle. We kept praying for, some breakthrough answer to come. So we were praying and believing for an answer. And in June, we were sharing the platform with a speaker that prayed for me that night. And he said, I really believe by October you're going to have an answer to this voice issue and God's going to heal you. So, fast forward to October came and I got the injection in October. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we get this contact from a friend that had a surgery in Japan. And it was for spasmodic dysphonia.
It was a non-invasive surgery, which most vocal surgeries are invasive, which means it's a one-way ticket, whereas this was I guess it was an invasive surgery in that it's going in there with a knife, but it was a completely reversible solution. So it was not a permanent thing. And it was at least worth it for us to see, okay, if this didn't work out, there was always a way out. But we began to really listen to other people who've had the surgery. It began to...
Yeah. Then we began Skyping with the doctors over there. And what it was 2 titanium bridges, the real small bridges that they would put in between the vocal cords to hold them open so that they would not slam together. And it would take away the need for Botox shots. It would take away all of the Botox injections. Also, like you said, this surgery, the bridges could be removed.
Yes. So if there was like a better solution down the road,
right,
it's non-permanent. So everything was really looking great, and the price of
that was where it was incredible.
Like people ask us a lot, why did you go
to Japan?
Well, I tell you what, the medicine in Japan is so different.
Yeah, there was 2 reasons. One was that it was titanium.
Yeah.
They do it in the U.S., but it's plastic. And the second reason is the surgery. Everything included, not the travel, but just the surgery at that time was like $5,000.
Unheard of. Here, you don't even get into that kind of.
So we knew it was we were pretty sure that was our miracle.
That was our answer, and we felt really confident. I was real sensitive to surgical solutions because, if you hear me on the podcast, I'm saying avoid surgical solutions. So I was real sensitive to that. But when I looked at these doctors and how the care, they basically, and I believe they're doing the Lord's work there in Japan because these guys just were passionate about helping give people back their voice that had this condition. And we just saw story after story, video after video, people who had conditions even more severe than Beth just get their voice back. So
we were just so impressed with them. And within 48 hours, we completely raised all the money, including the travel expenses. So we went and
incredible trip,
and the surgery was amazing. I was awake for the surgery.
Yeah,
it was such a fine-tuning process that was just a miracle in itself.
Yeah,
to watch them work, and they brought you in during the surgery because you're a vocal coach.
I told the doctor, I said, and it was so nerve-wracking in there because their English was spotty and my Japanese was like 0. And I remember trying to explain to them, we want her to be able to talk, but singing is paramount. Like I would say that probably singing was more important to you than even speaking. And so what we actually had to do was tune the voice. It was such an amazing and nerve-wracking experience because I had been doing so much study on spasmodic dysphonia and preparing myself for that moment. I had like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I said, okay, hun, sing this note. And she's like, she's all opened up and everything. And she's like, ah. And I had to and they go, is that it? And I said, well, increase it a little bit. And then they increase it. And I was like, no, that's not quite it. Let's go back. It was crazy.
And like a fine tuning with my voice, with my throat open. And the thing that was so special was the way they prepared the room. They knew I was a worship leader, so they played worship music while they were doing the surgery.
They played Cody Carnes, our friend.
Cody was singing, and I had tears just running down my face.
It was amazing. I've never experienced anything like it. These were truly caring, kind, wonderful people.
Well, it was God's hand, covering all things. You were sitting at a nearby Starbucks.
Yeah, I was giving the play-by-play because those who had joined us on this journey, I was giving the play-by-play, and they were waiting like hours into the night because of the time difference. It was in the middle of the day for me, but the intercessors and the people praying for us were just waiting. I pulled over to a Starbucks. I said, okay, so I was just like, I was exhausted. I was emotional. It was an amazing thing. And then, so tell us what happened after all of this.
So coming home was just a time of recovery and rebuilding, rebuilding the strength, rebuilding, because those bridges are in there holding open. The therapy part, we have to work on bringing it closed because there's a lot of, like right now, you can hear that there's no spazzing anymore. And I can talk and,
Definitely got the most consistent voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just so grateful. It is a miracle. And no more injections ever. So that life sentence was washed away.
Right. So no more Botox. And you have had a consistent voice. Now, it's not without its challenges.
Sure.
It's kind of where, you've been working a lot on vocal techniques to strengthen the voice and really your vocal technique post the surgery has really gotten better than it's ever been. Sometimes the limitations that we have in life cause us to do the extra work and to, experience levels of proficiency in the midst of. So even with a compromised situation, you've been able to kind of push through that and not say, this is the end of that story. You're still pushing and you're still experiencing growth and recovery. Even years later.
Yeah, because we had the surgery in 2018. So, it's a process of walking out, strengthening and pitch. Pitch is a lot, like what pitch that I place my voice in when I'm talking, because even with spasmodic dysphonia and the Botox injections, if I would talk in a higher pitch placement, so you go through that in your vocal coaching, where you place the voice up into the mask, up into here, that's very important instead of talking down in the throat.
Pitch.
And when you drop your pitch down into your throat, you can do so much damage on your voice.
Yeah, and we've learned so much in this process. But if you're someone out there that has experienced an unexpected or an unexplained vocal issue, what encouragement would you have to say for them?
Don't ever stop, believing for a breakthrough, for an answer. Don't give up hope. There's always hope.
There's always a reason to hope.
And there's a reason for the journey, just like with Job, when he walked through something so trying of your faith, you just find in the journey, there are these other things that you find that are just priceless along the way. And, you help others that are, if you're experiencing spasmodic dysphonia, not to feel isolated or alone. That condition can cause you to be very isolated because you avoid talking. I would avoid people. If I saw someone I knew out in the public, I would go the other direction to keep from having to, interface with anyone. And, avoid the drive-through. I would avoid...
It produce a lot of stress.
It's a lot of anxiety.
Which actually makes the condition
worse, yeah. So it is very isolating. That's why I feel like, Satan is the one behind all of this. So if you're finding yourself in an isolated place, just don't give up hope. Keep pressing, keep believing for a miracle.
Yeah, and also because we have learned so much, I have developed exercises and protocols and a community of vocalists that share in the vocal health issues. And so if you or someone is dealing with not just wanting to develop their voice, but a vocal issue that they don't know how to get on the other end of it, through this process, we have found exercises and things that are different than the typical singing exercises, but that are actually
more therapy,
very, very powerful in rebuilding the voice. And this not only applies to severe conditions like yours, but even just a long stint of laryngitis, or you're trying to get your voice back. And even during the COVID-19 pandemic, that affected a lot of people's voices. So if you're finding that your voice isn't what it was, I just want to let you know that there are very viable solutions. So forward this podcast to anyone that you know that has any kind of a vocal issue that might benefit from this. And also to let you know, there's a link in the description in the podcast. I have a membership for not only singers and vocalists, but those needing vocal therapy. It's probably the most affordable way for you to invest in your voice. It starts with a 30-day free trial, and you can only get that by clicking in the link in the description. It's not available on the website. It's only for special people. And because you made it to the end of this episode, I want to extend this to you. 30 days to experience everything on My Voice Mentor, which is a plethora of exclusive vocal training content that literally has taken this journey and years to find. You're not going to find this with your average vocal.
And you have a community in that, right? That you can do 2 live coaching calls a week.
We do 2 live coaching calls a week via Zoom with a group of people, which means you can get 2 hours of coaching with me where I'm working directly with you with your vocal issues, whatever they may be, twice a week. That's 2 hours of coaching, up to 8 hours of coaching a month.
Even after the 30-day trial, I think it's like $49 a month.
Yes, $49 a month. It could not be more affordable for you to invest in your voice. So if you're interested in that, try it out for 30 days. If you quit, it wouldn't offend me at all. If I can give you everything you need in 30 days, great. You can get in there and cancel before it ends. I would be totally fine with that. No problem. I want to be able to help you with your voice as much as possible. So there's no reason not to do it. Click on the link and get started today. So I really appreciate you joining me. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Her story inspires me. It inspires me every day to get up and work hard to build training content, vocal content. If you are a vocalist wanting to improve your voice, if you have a vocal issue, if you want to turn your voice into a career, I want to connect with you. Feel free to email me at clay@myvoicementor.com. Feel free to ask any questions that you have. I want to help you today with your voice. In the meantime, keep joining us every week. Episodes are going to release every Friday, and we've got some very exciting guests coming up in March and in the coming weeks. So you're not going to want to miss a single episode. Be sure to get caught up on some of the past episodes because there's some amazing stuff in there. But until next time, keep investing in your voice. You're going to have it for a lifetime. We'll see you soon.